time I forget what the button is. Okay, brilliant. So I thought it'd be good to talk a little bit about the reason for this event. So as I'm sure most of you already know, this week is MS Awareness Week, and the theme for this week is MS Unfiltered. So MS Unfiltered is a sensitive and intimate campaign that aims to shine a light on the huge range of symptoms and daily challenges that people with MS face. It also seeks to encourage and empower people with MS to speak up and get the support when they need to. So today our panelists, so we've got Georgia, Jake and Han, and they're going to be sharing their experiences of dealing with certain symptoms. And I've also got Hannah Reid, so a different Han, who will be just helping me host this event as well. So to start with, can we just very quickly introduce the panel? So can you all just tell us your name, age, and when you were diagnosed, please? We'll start with Han.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah, whatever you want to call me, really. And I've already actually forgotten, except for when I was diagnosed, what you asked for, which shows you one of my symptoms. I was diagnosed in 2019. And what else did you ask, Amy?
Just your age, if you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I turned 36 in January this year.
Oh my God. And then we'll go to Jake.
Hello, my name is Jake. I'm 31 and I was diagnosed in 2017.
Amazing, thank you. And Georgia.
Hi everyone, I'm Georgia. I am 29. I keep thinking I'm 28 and 29 like 2 weeks ago. I'm 29. I was diagnosed on my 25th birthday in 2020.
Fun times.
I know, great birthday present.
Terrible. How cruel.
I know.
Thank you all so much. So before we start, I'm just going to introduce the topic of symptoms by doing a quick poll. So if you can all head to our Slido by using this link, hopefully it works for you all. If you've been on one of our calls before, you'll know that I love a Slido. Right. And once you are on there, you should see our first question, which is, do you find any of your MS symptoms embarrassing? Simple yes or no answer. And this is all completely anonymous. How many people have we got on the call? 17.
I don't think you can get
That's everyone. I was just trying to figure it out, like, has everyone voted? Yes, they have. That was really quick. And I think it kind of shows the need for this event, and I guess making people feel more comfortable about talking about certain MS symptoms. So thank you all for voting on that. Oh, we've had one no. Very interesting. Thank you for voting. Right, we'll stop that one. And then the next one is going to be a word cloud. So what MS symptom do you find the most embarrassing? So obviously this will only apply if you ticked yes to the last question. So you can pop a word, or I think you can maybe pop a few words in here. Bladder. Yeah. I definitely forget people's names all the time.
I used to have great tricks at like remembering people's names, and I've forgotten the tricks. So
Just a few more minutes. Got a few last votes coming in.
Quite a few different ones.
Yeah, really interesting. I think these are definitely some of the things we'll be touching on today. So thank you so much for sharing them. balance, continence, yeah,
Bladder and bowel, big ones.
definitely. Just got one last person typing. Mental health.
Mhm.
Brilliant. Think that's everyone. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, everyone. It just I think is quite a nice way to kind of get the conversation started, see what I guess is on your minds as well, and hopefully we can talk about some of these things over the next hour. So the Q&A is open, so you'll be able to access that through the same link. I'll just pop that in again for anyone that might not have got it, because we've just had a few other people join. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So I think we will now get started with the panel discussion. So you've met your panel and they should be pinned to your screen. So they'll be there the whole way through for you to concentrate on. So does anyone, Han, Jake and Georgia, does anyone want to start by just talking a little bit about some of the symptoms that you have previously experienced or still currently experience? Anyone want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Thanks.
If you've seen the WhatsApp group, you know I'm constantly getting UTIs current at the moment. I've got a lot of bladder problems that have been present since kind of 2020-ish. I think my mobility started to go and everything else goes with it then. And the neurologists and the physios and things have said that when you tend to get them in the spine, that's when you tend to notice everything below the waist starting to struggle. So I've now started self-catheterizing, which is obviously really uncomfortable. I've got bladder pads. They do basically irrigation for your bowels and stuff that you can get as a set. So that's been my life for the last few months, just trying to get adjusted to all of that. So there you go. There's your starting off point, because bladder came up the biggest, and
Definitely, yeah.
a big struggle.
Do you find is it, you were saying retention is your problem, or?
Retention, urgency, and hesitancy. So
So a nice happy trifecta.
yeah,
Good
so
for you. Well done.
I'm desperate, and then I can't go, and then there's still some left at the end of it.
Oh, bless you. Okay. I have a very different situation. But I was quite glad that like 2020 was, no one was around, everyone was out for walks, but I was away from everyone, because the amount of times like I had to go and I had like a second and a half's notice was just insane. Like now I get maybe 5 seconds heads up, but I don't get a lot of messages at all from my body. So I forget, like, you don't think you would forget to go to the loo, but actually it's not something that you think about during the day. Your body tells you and you go. Whereas I have to be like, when did I last go to the loo? Okay, it's been a few hours, I should go, so that I don't then have an issue later.
That's the same as me. That's exactly the same as me. I'm just like, when did I last go to toilet? And I drink a lot of water as well, just because like migraines and stuff is what I need to do. And it'll be like, oh, I don't know. And I'll be sat there, and then out of nowhere, it's that, oh my God, I'm going to piss my pants. Sorry. I am going to wee, and then I suffer really badly with leg weakness. So I'll shoot up to run to the toilet, and I'm hitting the deck, and I can't get there. So now I wear pads. I used to be very, very embarrassed by it, and it started off actually. I was at my grandmother's house, and she's like, "Why don't you just use one of my pads?" Because she gets them because she's old. And I was like, "All right, give one you then." Game changer. And now I use them all the time, even when I go into the office. I used to be really embarrassed. You know, as a woman, you're wearing tight clothes, and then if you've got like a massive pad on, you'd be like, "Oh my God, everybody's gonna see it." But now I've changed the kind of clothes that I wear, and I'd rather be wearing a pad than just wetting myself through my workwear, for example. And I work in construction, so I could be on a site or anything with all these like older men and stuff, and they don't like, I didn't want to be rushing for the really crap facilities that they have available. So pads have saved my life when it comes to my bladder.
It's actually really interesting you say that about your job and your work, because one of the reasons that contributed to me leaving my last job was the amount of times I had wet myself at work, and like we were really lucky, like we would have these huge bags that we would always have all our kit in, so it wasn't like a big deal. And because I worked in the film industry, we couldn't like just do what we wanted when we wanted. I got away with it a bit more than maybe would be acceptable in maybe another situation, because I just blamed it on, oh, well, I couldn't step away. But I mean, there's only so many times you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my
Oh,
my big
go on.
thing is like I've got really bad leg muscle stiffness.
Hmm.
When it's like, oh, you need to go to the toilet now, that's then a struggle, because I need to be able to relax enough that I can stand up and start walking without relaxing my bladder and just wetting myself.
Yeah.
It's a big balancing act between the two. So it is a pain, but you do learn how to do it. It's just then a weird, awkward shuffle to wherever. But again, I agree. Pads are the way forward. And they're not expensive. And I think you can even get them on prescription if it's bad enough.
I've had them on prescription. I don't need them on prescription now. I can still get access to them if I want. I have to say, I decided, for me, I wanted to try the medication route because I was already on so much medication anyway. So I found big improvement through that. And then if I'm ever doing anything like a social event, or if for once in an absolute blue moon that I ever decide to drink these days, I would definitely make sure I wear a pad or something. But on a day-by-day basis, I'm still in that headspace of I don't want to wear them. So it's really, really refreshing to talk to you two who are, I know that obviously it's not, no one ever wants to make those decisions, but obviously there are decisions that need to be made, and quality of life is more important than some of these minor details.
Yeah, I think it's important as well. It's not one size fits all. Everybody's got a different relationship to how they want to approach different things. Like, for example, I've got this thing in my head about taking too many tablets. I'm sick of going to the GP with my nurse and saying, "Oh, this is a tablet for this." I'm like, "How many more tablets a day can I take?" And I was like, I'm just going to try it more holistically, because for me, that little thing in my head saying I don't want to take, like, I struggle to remember to take my tablets anyway. So I was like, if that doesn't work for me, but if for someone like yourself, and it would. So I think it's not one size fits
It's
all.
hard because it wasn't really where I wanted to go, but it was kind of forced upon me, and I'm now slowly working back with them to come off a lot of my medication. But the problem is that I also have bowel issues, and the bladder issues and the bowel issues work opposite ways. So it then becomes tricky to figure out, how do you treat one without affecting the other?
Yeah.
I don't know what you find with yours, Jake.
I don't really think, because it's constipation for me, but I lost kind of a lot of feeling across my stomach, so I don't really know that I'm constipated until I try to go to the toilet, and then it's like, well, this is going to be a long sit down. I mean, so like I said, they gave me the irrigation system for it, but it's just so, it's time. Like, you have to sit on the toilet for half an hour afterwards of using it because you fill yourself full of water. And then I've never used it and felt comfortable afterwards for the rest of the day, because then you're just worried about everything, like any slight movement, is any more going to come out. So I think personally, I will be switching away from the mechanical, and probably just looking for.
That was never offered to me. Like, it's funny for me because I had I've got Crohn's disease as well, which I mentioned to the other panelists before we started the call. So at one point, I would be going to the bathroom like 45 times a day, like no joke. And I was very, very poorly. So I was kind of okay with, in a sense, with the constipation, because to me, of the two evils, it felt lesser. I was wrong. And it's now been like 3 or 4 years of being chronically constipated. And I was never offered any sort of anything like that. It was like Pickleax and all the stuff. Yeah, and like stool softeners and all of that sort of stuff. And it helps, but it doesn't get you all the way, if that makes sense.
Because I've got IBS sometimes as well. When I spoke to the providers of the irrigation kit, they basically said if you have an attack of IBS, then you shouldn't really use it for 3 days afterwards because of like how your bowels are. So that might be why they've not offered it you with Crohn's, to be honest. It might just be something where it's like this isn't kind of realistically suitable for the damage that Crohn's can do. Considering it's much more so than IBS, and with IBS they've already said no, like take a day off, take a break.
It kind of puts, like, I don't know how you guys feel, but it has affected my view on like traveling or going out places, because I don't know, a lot of women will say when they go on holiday, like they'll become constipated. I don't know if that's true for men, but I know a few of my girlfriends that have said that, and I'm like, well, you should try being on morphine. And so like now I've get to this headspace where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be able to enjoy a holiday? Am I going to be able to, so I don't know.
I'm flying. I avoid long haul now as much as I possibly can, because I cannot do it. And I said it to you guys, the other panelists, before everyone joined, that I've got a fear of public toilets, and I think it's actually a very common thing. It's, even though I'm accepting of my bladder and bowel issues, I'm not accepting of doing it in a public place yet. Hopefully that comes with age, but it hasn't yet. And that's probably one of the reasons with my job, I've got the option to work from home or work in the office. I choose home 99% of the time, because I have to plan, even down to what I'm eating when I'm going into the office. Like, I won't eat as much, and then we've got our fatigue to battle with, and then we're not eating enough for energy, and it's just like, I'll just stay at home. And it's kind of, from a mental health point of view, it kind of makes you a bit more of a recluse, so you just feel more comfortable on your own. So that's my opinion and what I've had to deal with.
So you felt you found the process very isolating.
Yeah, definitely. If the people that I'm with are not people that have known me for a very long time, know everything, like a lot about me and my mannerisms and stuff like that, I won't feel comfortable. And as part of my job being a consultant, I'm often around a lot of clients, prospective clients and things like that. And I really have to mentally get into the space of like being prepared for what might pop up because of MS.
And you touched on obviously your mental health there, Georgia, but do any of you others want to talk a little bit about mental health, the mental health side of things, and how these kinds of symptoms have affected you, or just mental health in general, and how that's a symptom in itself?
I think I had a mini breakdown this weekend, because Amy had a wonderful, I think Sam is on this call, I'm not sure, event with MS Together up in Manchester this weekend, and I couldn't go, and that really, really sucked, because I didn't feel capable of getting myself solo to Manchester, because I ended up with food poisoning in December, and it's really affected, for some reason, my mobility, and that's taken another nosedive. And it always takes a while to work your way back from these things that happen, and I feel often very alone. And I only feel often connected in situations like this with people that truly understand, because it wasn't just the MS Together event in Manchester, for example. The weekend before, my neighbours got married, and we were all a big group of friends over the last 5 years. And over the last year and a half, my mobility's got worse and worse, and I've been going to less and less events. And while they all started doing a running club together, and eventually over time they've become really, really close. And in the end, I didn't make the cut. And it felt very hurtful, because I felt like, in my head, what my head told me was, because I can't do the running club with them, I have lost that friendship and lost that connection. And so I think sometimes my partner took me crazy golfing, and we did a bunch of stuff that I could do and I really enjoyed. And I think it's about recognizing those moments where, like, I was really vulnerable last weekend and the weekend before, and I prepared myself for not being in like a good headspace, like when these things were happening, because I felt like I was missing out, and I felt like my life was passing me by a bit. But on the other side, being able to express that to people that truly understand does take the weight off a little bit. And like, it's quite refreshing to know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. Like, because you feel a bit like petty, like FOMO. I'm supposed to be a grown-up. Like, I'm not really sure I should be missing out, like fear of missing out.
I think it affects more of us than you think. Like, I'm Queen FOMO. I am terrible, to the point where I Photoshop myself into my friends' photos because I physically can't be there. Like, I'm crazy. But I get like that, or I'm sat there like, oh my God, am I nuts? Is it just me? But this is like so refreshing knowing that it's not just me.
Yeah, I think I had a big break when I started with all of the mechanical stuff, and I was just in the bathroom and everything's kind of in bags. There's stuff in the sink. I've got a special chair for the bath, and just looking at it all together, and I was like, that's not really what I want to see. Fortunately, I will be getting counselling soon, on the 1st of May, I think is my first session. It's taken a long time to get there because it's the NHS.
Yeah, it does.
For everyone here, hopefully, I found that the MS Society has local chapters, and your local chapter might offer counselling at a reduced rate. So I know if you're in Solihull, you can get 10 45-minute sessions for £10 a session, which is much
That's
better.
really good.
Obviously, 50-60 pounds, which counselling normally can be. So if you're not willing to do the wait for NHS and you need it a lot quicker, then checking out what the MS
Always check out local charities.
Yeah.
Because there are so many that, even if they're not an MS charity, I've just like, when you said that, I just thought of a local charity like we support through work that offers like free counselling to people under 40 when they have some sort of crisis or event. So yeah, definitely.
Just to very quickly add to that, MS Together will be launching some exciting new mental health services over the next few weeks as well. I can't say too much about them because we're going to do a big announcement, but yeah, definitely keep your eye out for those as well. Please continue with the sorry, I'll actually ask you another question. So firstly, I just want to say thank you all for sharing about that. I know it's not always easy, and thank you, Han, for being vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Me, I'm an oversharer.
That's what we need on this call. It's good. But yeah, so I guess kind of linking to mental health, I think something that affects a lot of people with MS is cognitive issues. Is that something that any of you experience?
Yeah.
Every single second of my life.
I think I work in a university, say in a university. I work for a university. I haven't been on site for a long time. But the original plan was for me to do a PhD while I was there, and then it got to a point where the head of psychology asked me, he was like, would you still be interested in doing it? And I was like, I don't have the cognitive function to be able to do this anymore. I can't absorb the information that I need from the articles. I'm not then going to be able to write coherent sentences and then deliver a viva at the end of it all. So I was like, no, I'm just not interested now, because it's just too much to think about at the same time, because reading gets hard enough as it is, and I enjoy reading, so I have to force myself a lot of the time to be like, read, but actually read, because sometimes I could be skimming the words and then it's like, right, none of that's gone in, let's read that again.
Did you ever play the pen mark game? Like, I did this when I was first diagnosed. The physio told me to do it. He was like, read a page and then think if you can remember what happened in the page, and if you can't, read the page again. But when you read the page, put a dot at the end of the page, and so you can see then how many times you've had to read the page to and it was like the overcoming MS book or something, and I think I got to like 17 dots and just gave up. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm exactly the same as Jake. I absolutely adore reading, and I also adore writing. My undergraduate was in creative writing. I thought I was going to be the next J.K. Rowling, but hey, what I've had to do, because I was not retaining the information, is switch to audiobooks. And even with audiobooks, I'm still have to, rewind a little bit, but it wasn't as bad
No,
as
it's not.
reading the words. So I found that to be really, really helpful. But I would have
Dictating as
said,
well.
yeah, I actually would have said that reading was part of my identity. So, like many things that we experience with MS, it kind of feels like you're losing a part of yourself. It's like chipping away. But being able to read again through audiobooks, for me, I felt like that chapter hadn't ended. Basically, it was a different way for me to experience it.
That's why I mentioned, like, oh, I couldn't control myself, dictation then. But yeah, sorry. But I, like, if you were into creative writing, I know, like, I love my Audible addiction. But I found, like, when it comes to like replying to people's messages or whatever, I use like a dictation service on my phone, and it saves a lot of time. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, you have to go in and fix things, but it gives you that ability to like spend less time on things that really, because I feel like a lot of these like things that we go through are time absorbing out of your day. So you can find ways around them, but it just takes so much time.
Voice notes for me. Every message I send is a voice note, and every one I ask to receive is a voice note, because if you send me a paragraph, I'm not reading it, because it just takes too long to digest it. So it's voice notes for everything.
Yeah,
I'm like a secret voice note hater. I hate people that send me voice notes so much. I'm like, I do not have time to listen to that. I am in the middle of a busy day. Like, I will listen to that whenever.
Explain what you want in memes and on phone.
That's a good way as well, Jake. That's a good way to
me, and I'm like, yeah, I've got what you mean.
Amy, what do you think you do?
Pardon?
What do you think you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
For what?
Oh my God, I've just forgotten what I was
preference?
saying. But I was gonna.
Oh, for
What's your
voice
preference?
noting.
Yeah.
Oh no, I do sometimes voice note, but only if I'm like in a really big rush.
I think we need to take it to a poll.
Yeah, I think we do.
Voice notes. I don't really like them. Sometimes I do, but they need to be short, because otherwise I just.
And I'll be going for 10 minutes.
We do have a question from the people for the panel, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
So someone has asked, how did your bladder issues start out? They've been experiencing some issues over the past 3 weeks, and they'd just like some advice from someone that's had it.
If you're experiencing issues, you're experiencing issues. I think, like, if you feel like there's an issue, there's an issue. But for me individually, the first thing I noticed was that I had a very, very full bladder, very little time notice given, and I basically used to say, oh, I'm pissed like a racehorse, which is a horrible saying, but like I would never know when I needed to go until the absolute last second. But people just used to call me like lazy. And maybe like a little dribble. Pass over now.
I think for me, it was at night time. So I've got like a routine. Yeah, I said I drink lots of water. I will always make sure I go to bed, clear myself out before I go to bed. Go to bed. It started over like a couple of weeks, and it was waking up, and I was wet basically. Way to kill a mood, but I was wet, and I was like, "What's going on here?" So then I started not drinking as much before bed, like stopping an hour before, 2 hours before, and it kept happening. So then I went to the doctors. I had all of like the UTI tests, things like that. And then that's when they told me that it was it can be a symptom of MS, and I was like, oh God, here's another thing we've got to deal with. I went through, is it called the incontinent?
Yes.
You know what I'm on about, those people.
Scheme.
That's the one. I went through them, and they told me to start keeping a diary of how much I was drinking and things like that. They did like a scan of my stomach, and they were just seeing that I wasn't fully emptying. And I think that's the signals. I was feeling like I was empty, but I was never fully empty. So it's just been I would say that was it for me. It was slowly over a couple of weeks at night time. And I don't know if it's because you're more relaxed and you haven't got as much awareness about what's going on.
You can also have like nocturia because your brain is telling your bladder to be more active at nighttime. So my urologist said that my brain was giving my bladder signals to work at night and not during the day.
Oh wow.
Helpful.
Mine started with the hesitancy, urgency thing. So it was always you're desperate, rush to the toilet, get there, nothing's going to happen. And you just have to stand there and wait. And it was things like really trying to relax. I'd have to press on my bladder, and then I'd get the equivalent of like a few drops. And it's like, no, I know I've got to stay here for a long time because I need to get as much out as I can. Because if I go and sit back down and get comfortable, I'm going to get that urge again. And then it's that kind of getting up, getting across, moving to the toilet.
Can I ask a question? Did sitting down to wee help?
So it never did for me. I think gravity helps with being stood up, because everything kind of relaxes more, because it's like, as a man, you've got a longer urethra because it twists around your prostate gland. And I think when you stood up, it's not as twisted as when you are sat down. It's like when you stand, like as a man, when you self-catheterize, they tell you it's easier to do it if you stood up.
Yeah.
If you sat down. So standing up's always been better. But I find if I sit down, I leak as well afterwards. Like it definitely doesn't all come out.
No, my other half was talking about when he sorry, randomly we were talking about it, and he said, look, when he sit down he's like 10% left over or something.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if like that had an impact. Sorry, my brain goes weird places. I can't explain it.
You can so you can feel like you're completely finished, and as you're standing up, it will just carry on again.
That's really helpful.
Right, it's great fun. But the catheters definitely help. If it's something that's bothering you, and you like me, and you've got hesitancy problems and retention, then I'd definitely look into getting them. They are obviously different for women than they are for men. Men's ones are longer, but they're really long. They're like up to 30 centimeters long, and they look terrifying. But my bladder nurse was like, no one has it easy though, because for women, the entrance is harder to find. And if you start to panic, it will hide itself. And then it makes it worse. And I was like, well, at least we're all in the same boat, that no one wants to be doing it.
Yeah.
He absolutely does not want tubes being put down tubes.
No, I mean there's lots of sort of intermediary steps as well. Like I remember for the bedwetting overnight is what I would refer to it. They called it nocturia and gave it a fancy name just to make me feel less embarrassed about it. But they gave me a drug called desmopressin, which would stop my bladder from working overnight. And so then you would just sweat out so you would be a bit more sweaty overnight, I found. So it's not obviously the nicest thing to, but then is wetting the bed with someone in it like no, so it's sort of a decision. And I've again forgotten what I was going to say, so I'll stop.
I'll jump in. Sorry, I was just going to say there's one thing I've noticed that has helped and it's reduced my accident is Pilates.
Mm.
It has helped so much. I don't know if it's in my head. I feel like it's right though. Pilates has helped is it pelvic floor? Yeah, I think it's my pelvic floor. To be honest with you, before I had MS, I used to pee myself when I was drunk anyway. I'm just not a great person with control. But Pilates has really changed my life. And my nurse said a lot of people have found the benefits of it as well with bladder problems too. So that might be something. And I would say if you think that you're having bladder problems, try a diary, how many times you're going. Because if you do go and see a nurse, you're going in with like hard facts that this is what's been happening to me, and they'll be able to signpost you quicker.
It should be easy enough to print off something where you can record what's going in and what's coming out.
Yeah.
Because they'll ask you for it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely do it before you go.
The first thing they'll say is, for a week, we just need you to do this form. So if you go with them and you've already done it, they can at least start the boat from there.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you if you're not sure how to access that service, go to your GP or your MS team and ask to be referred to the incontinence team.
Yeah.
And if you need to go to your urologist, they'll then refer you on. But usually the starting point for everybody is the incontinence team. They'll give you a bit of a bladder scan, see where you're at.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have another question, if that's all right. Out of all the symptoms that you experience, which one do you or did you find most embarrassing? And if you no longer feel embarrassed, how did you overcome that?
Great question.
It is a good one.
Okay.
No, you go, Han.
Okay. So I get a lot of spasms, which isn't an embarrassing symptom in itself. It's how I manage that symptom that I find is an issue. So I use medical cannabis. I am a medical cannabis patient, and I've always found it to be the most helpful thing to relax my muscles, more helpful than many of the drugs that they've put me on, and a lot less invasive to my stomach and my digestive system. It's something that obviously is legal now in the UK, but to be honest, I started in 2012 when I moved to Madrid, where it was legal there. And I saw the basically eradication of all my Crohn's disease symptoms, and really, really changed my outlook on holistic health and all of those things. But when I came back to the UK, it was a different issue, and it was kind of demonized by my family and by friends of mine, and I found it really hard. And now, even as I'm a legal medical cannabis patient, I find it quite a difficult thing to talk about. And I will refrain from inviting people into my home, or I will think about where I might be staying. And it's tricky because I'm not doing anything illegal or wrong, and it helps me and it's medically there for me. But I definitely feel the taboo of it. So that's what I would answer to that question.
Thank you.
Sure.
I've got a few. Probably the worst one is bowel issues. That's gonna, like, we're all young people. Like, the last thing that we want is bowel issues. But like, I remember being on a train and it just welcome to the party kind of scenario. It was absolutely traumatizing. That one was really, really, really hard for me to get comfortable with. And like when I can go to the gym, if I went to the gym, having to worry about that because of like the stress you're putting your body under and stuff like that. That one, I won't lie, I went into a very dark hole where I didn't feel like me. I'm normally a very confident person. I just struggled to put myself in any situation because that one was really, really, really hard for me. I'm not bad now. Probably the fact that I don't have to leave my house as much as we did pre-COVID. I'm very conscious of what I'm eating, where I'm going, and things like that. So I'm not too worried about my bowels. The second one would probably be my spasms, weakness in my leg. I don't know if it's because I'm a dramatic person, but it's like I'm getting tasered in a street, and it's so embarrassing. Like I said to everybody, I work in construction, and I'm going onto construction sites where I'm in charge of people's health and safety. I had an episode where my spasms went and my legs went, and I had all of these guys, older guys around me, like, what the hell is going on? Like, how is this person going to keep all of us safe on a building site if they can't even stand up? That one was very, very difficult for me. I felt like I was vulnerable. And I think that's an MS thing and a woman thing. Like on a night out, things like that.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, mobility as a woman. When I was younger, I did MMA. Like, I ain't doing
Yeah.
nothing now. Do you know
I
what
was
I
the
mean?
same.
Like the fact that I know I'm somebody, anything could happen to me and I can't protect myself now is the biggest thing that scares the life out of me. I feel so. Yeah,
Do you
carry on,
use
Han.
the walking aid or anything, or is it just through your own physicalness that you feel that?
I think it'd be from. I do have a stick. I'm still getting to a place where I'm really comfortable to use my stick. I only really use it around my husband and like family, but otherwise I'll like lean against a wall, support myself that way, try and use whatever's around me. But the weakness was the thing that got me to go to the doctors in the first place.
Yeah.
I when I try to explain to someone what it feels like, it's so hard to find the words. Like, it's like locked in syndrome. It was like I couldn't do anything. It was like I was bending like the exorcist. I don't know what was going on. It was terrifying. And just the thought of that happening in a situation where I'm not used to my surroundings, that absolutely terrifies me. And I'm still overcoming that anxiety and fear. And it's actually, I'm in counselling at the moment. I don't know what the official term of it. I was referred to my MS nurse. And it's about my identity and being comfortable in what I can and cannot do now and how I view myself. And it is really helpful, but there's a lot of work that needs to go into that.
It will keep going. Like, I don't know, like I obviously have a little bit further along my mobility journey, or you might never reach where I am at. Everybody's disease looks different, but
Yeah.
I definitely know that as I've what I like to refer to as leveled up on each piece of equipment, there can, it's like I don't like to talk about it to my family or friends and stuff, but like I will feel like there'll be days where I don't give a fuck and I'll just get my walker out and I don't care, and I can get to the front of the queue, or it's a positive. And then the other part of the time, I'm very aware about how vulnerable I am, and how, like, as a woman, like, if you go anywhere at night, you're walking with your keys between your fingers anyway. Like, when you feel like you've got a target saying, I can't run away.
Yeah.
It is very terrifying.
Yeah,
Because
it
you
is.
feel like you are losing a part of your independence, even more than just, I can't choose certain things, journeys, and like avenues in my life anymore, but now I can't even leave my house.
Mhm.
So I definitely think, like, we have to keep being kind to ourselves as we go through that journey of needing different aids and needing different things, because there'll be days where you're okay with it, and there'll be days where you're not okay with it. It's not, sometimes you can kind of deal with things, but maybe you're not like you've not accepted them as such, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake?
I think I'll go with one of the ones that was on there that hasn't been talked about yet, but obviously sexual problems comes up for everyone. I think, and I am the only male in the phone call, I think, judging by the names, but obviously for men, it's more visible that there's a problem than it is for women. But I think the second part of the question is the most important bit, which is if you no longer feel embarrassed, how did you overcome that? And for me, it's stuff like that can happen to anyone anyway. If you need the help for it, it's there. The people that you're going to be getting into contact with are medical professionals. They're not there to say, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
To provide you with whatever it is that you need to make sure that, you're in the right headspace, you've got the right equipment, you've got the right medication if you need it, you know what you're doing. And I think that's probably one of the big things for me is the support network of friends that I've got have been brilliant, because they've been more than happy to talk about a lot of the stuff anyway. I'm lucky in that my friends are very unwell. Across all of us, there is a range of, so one has type 1 diabetes, one has cluster headaches, there's migraine problems. Everyone in my friendship group is somehow unwell. So we're all going through the NHS meat grinder at different points. And we're all getting help for different things. And that helps, is to just get it out in the open with some people. I find, if it's out there, then it's out there, isn't it? Like there's only so much that you can dwell on things, I think. So like with the bladder issues, I wet myself in Twickenham Stadium watching an England rugby match, which in fairness, there's a thing for men called a convene, which is essentially like an external catheter. So it's attached to a bag, but then it's like a condom.
Yeah, it goes on the tip, doesn't it?
Yeah. But
just the tip.
No, the whole thing goes down the whole thing.
Sorry, I was just lowering the tone. I don't know what I was doing. Never mind.
Whoever invented it was smart enough to make it so that the incredibly strong adhesive melts in contact with urine. So I was just urinating, thinking it was going into this urine bag down the side of my leg when it wasn't, but I couldn't feel it because like everything was kind of not working. So I went to the toilet at one point and to empty the bag, and I was like, "There's nothing in this bag," and stood up, and I was like, that's where it all is."
Where's it gone?
I've got some very absorbent tracky bottoms though. But then, like I said, like I rolled myself back to my seat. I did have a spare change of clothes, but the toilet's there. Just I wouldn't have had the space to change, and with how much I was going to the toilet, I thought if I change into these, the exact same thing's just going to happen again anyway. So I rolled up to my friend and I was like, right, this is what's going on. I was like, it might smell. I'm sorry, mate, but there's nothing I can do about it at this point. Message me why. And I was like, this is it. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to have a shower when we get back. It's fine. Bring a towel, essentially.
Wow.
One thing I would say is with the bladder and sexual problems, like it's not a sexual problem, but having bladder problems and having a partner plays into like sexual things, obviously. And I do think sometimes there are things that you can't deal with and things that you can deal with. So like I've had bladder problems over years. So my last partner was a horrible person, and his dad and him discussed that he should leave me because of my MS. But basically the first flare that I had nocturia overnight, and I wet the bed, and he made me feel like a really filthy, dirty person. And I was really, really upfront and honest about this with my new partner. And I think sometimes just being honest about how these things affect you, and that they are like, they're not nice, they're not fun, is part of it. Because
And it's not a choice.
yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
choice. Like my partner now wouldn't give a monkeys. He'd be like, the first thing he would be worried about is how I'm feeling, and can he do anything for me? And that really helps. Obviously, not everybody has a partner. Some people are on their own, but being frank and open about this has been an issue for you. There are good people out there that are accepting. Like I met my partner with MS. He knew about my MS up front. He met me with a walking aid. Yeah, okay, I didn't say the first night that we were going to bed together, oh, by the way, I could piss the bed on you. But I had made it clear throughout the previous couple of weeks, I do have bladder problems from time to time. So he's a smart man, he could figure it out. I don't know. I think these conversations are important, not just with us, with each other, but with our friends and families, like having these, like, because as you said, Georgia, like a lot of women, I've talked about this with so many friends who have gone, I piss myself all the time and I don't even have MS. So it's actually often more common. Or as you say, Jake, you've got friends that have other issues for other reasons. So sometimes you have crossover.
I think as well with the with like the sexual difficulties as well. I think a big part of it for me is fatigue.
Oh
I
God,
can't
yeah.
bother to get out of bed in the morning, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like the fatigue is unbearable. I just say it's married life now, but
Yeah.
yeah, the fatigue is really, really hard. And that's again very similar to what the three of us said, is having the conversation with them. I'm not, when I say I'm tired, it's not tired like you think it's tired. It's like I physically cannot lift my arm up, never mind my leg up.
Do you find as well, away from like sort of the sexual side, but the fatigue in general, I think that I've had a lot from people that I've spoken to, obviously other people that have MS, is that obviously a lot of symptoms of MS are invisible. If you don't have a mobility aid, you might not be able to tell that somebody's, got a disability or anything like that. And what I found, and what I don't know if any of you found, is a lot of the time people don't understand that fatigue. Oh, it's a Monday, you've rested all weekend, how are you tired still? Or, I think there's weirdly a lot of stigma even around the fact that you're fatigued. Oh, you look fine. You look fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely I agree. And I think if you're I'm a very hyperactive person anyway. And there's like a running joke where everyone's like, yeah, you're fine in work. It'll take me 3 business days to get back to normal, having to put a face on to speak to you, sort of thing. And with the invisibility part of it, that hits the nail on the head. I went to a wedding this weekend. I wore heel, very low, they were barely heels, you know what I mean? I wore heels and they were like, why have you got a blue badge? Why have you got it? Like you're fine. Oh, you're faking it. Honestly, the fury within me. Like, what am I meant to do? I'm entitled to a blue badge. I'm gonna park where I'm allowed to park. Just because I don't look like it, I look fine. You haven't seen the flip side of it, and that really grinds my gears. Like in like even outside that situation, going to say Asda or something like that. Even though I have a blue badge, I get guilt. I have guilt in case, somebody else needs it. If it's a full, all the bays are full, I'll go somewhere else because I'm like, what if there's somebody worse than me? But if it's empty and I park there, the amount of people that have shouted at me for parking there is absolutely horrendous.
Awful.
My
Yeah.
mother-in-law has rheumatoid arthritis, which is how she got her blue badge, and she really struggles on her on her mobility and stuff. But if you are parked in a blue badge bay and you do not have a blue badge, she will key your car.
Yeah, no, and if you haven't got a badge, I completely agree. I've got my badge and I have it out and I use it when I'm bad. I don't use it every day. Like my thing for me is I could literally just stand up and my legs go. It's just like jelly legs. They're just gone. Do you want me to fall into my car door and smash yours open? I can do that if you want.
Yeah, I seem to have the complete opposite issue to you in that mine are completely stiff. So that when I'm getting into a car, if I try to then get them in, I'll plank, and then it's like, right,
Oh,
you're gonna have to wait now for me to very, very slowly get these to bend. And people will always touch them and try to bend them and then go, hang on a minute, that's not going anywhere.
oh.
No, it's the magic trick I play for whenever I get the physio's new student is, can you bend my legs? And the answer is no. But yeah, getting into taxis and stuff for me is an absolute nightmare because I need to relax and chill and make sure I'm in. They've all been fine. They've all been great. All the taxi drivers have been really supportive, which is a very odd thing to say. But
Sorry for dashing off. We were talking about the bladder so much.
but yeah, so like leg issues is something that I really struggle with. But I use a chair now to get around. When I was on crutches, it was a lot worse. Like I was a lot more self-conscious and stuff when I was on crutches. I was a lot more terrified when I was on crutches because like I used to get the train into work. So I'd get dropped off at the train station, get the train, then I'd have to walk across New Street train station, then get a taxi up to work from there. And I'd be absolutely terrified that I was going to slip, I was going to fall because I've done it before. But now that I've got the chair, I feel a lot better because
I find the same thing.
A little bit more. I mean, it is still a pain because trains are awful and all that, but like there's a lot more I can do with it. I've got a little power thing that attaches on the back. It's only one way. It literally just pushes, so I still have to steer because I don't want to lose all mobility completely. So I still have to use my arms and things, push the wheels. But if there's a hill, then I've got this little pack on the back that will push me up. Or if my wife's around, then she'll do it for me. But it's definitely something that's helped, and I feel much better in the wheelchair than I did on crutches.
I think the moral of the story is find what works for you.
Yeah.
And also,
what works for
one
you.
thing won't necessarily work all the time. Like I'm on 2 crutches. I have a walker. I just bought a chair. I'm gonna flip between all of that. And if I can have one crutch one day, you damn sure I'm having that one crutch one day. And I have poles when I'm out hiking and stuff, because I still get out and about. It might be slow and it might be difficult, but I'm not going to give up the things that made me beforehand. So even if it doesn't look exactly the same, I'm going to find a way to I'm not going to let it dictate my entire life.
Yeah, I use crutches if it's very short distances. So if I'm going through the house to the taxi and then the taxi to the GP, then I'll use crutches. But if it's anything like a much longer distance than that, then it's straight in the chair. But I'll definitely find that I'm more open to going out now that I've got the chair because it's less tiring, especially with the battery pack and things on it. But then saying that, like, social situations can be fatiguing. Just being out can be fatiguing. I had it the other day. I had friends come around and it was like afterwards I was knackered. And then 2 days later, I'm like, I'm still tired. And my wife was like, yeah, because it's knackering for you. Like you just gotta live with it. But she loves the chair, but that's mainly because, you know, I'm 5'6", she's 5'4.5", and it means she can finally wear heels when we go out because she's always going to be taller than I am. So she bought some very thick heels pretty much as soon as the chair arrived. So, but I think that's what it is.
Like an opposite problem. My partner is literally 5'7" and I'm 5'6". So like God sent me that so I could have flat shoes for life.
Oh, well, we're gonna finish up in a few minutes, because I know you've all had busy days.
It's not been an hour. We're just
It
wafflers.
has?
This is a panel of wafflers. I love it.
I know, we could go on, couldn't we? I think I just wanted to finish with one last question, so try and keep your answers relatively brief if you can.
Yeah, okay.
But we did a survey with a few other charities for MS Awareness Week, and something that came through a lot was the fact that people felt embarrassed to speak to their healthcare professionals and like didn't really know how to navigate that conversation. And the same with like family members, friends, partners. I guess it's quite a big question, so I apologize for leaving you on this, but what advice, if you could just give one bit of advice, what would you give for navigating those conversations about these symptoms?
So I think what I said earlier just sticks. They're there to help you. Family should be there to help you. Your friends should be there to help you, and the healthcare professionals are definitely there to help you.
Yeah.
Especially with healthcare professionals, they'd have seen worse than whatever it is that you're bringing to them. There's and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's literally their job. They signed up for it. They're there to help, and there are going to be things that you don't want to talk to them about, but you just realistically you just need to, and it's going to be fine. I mean, I had one the other day because antibiotics for UTIs lead to thrush, so I had to go in, and then she was like, do you need someone to come in with us? And I was like, no, like, I trust you, this is your job, like, I understand it's because it's a sensitive area, but at the end of the day it's still your job. Like, you've seen many willies. Just crack on, tell me what I need, and we can both be gone as quick as we can. I think the longer you put it off, the worse things can get. So
Yeah,
it's just getting that kind of push yourself to speak to people.
yeah,
I think that's
definitely. I think for me, I'm short and sweet. What's the worst can happen? What is the worst that can happen? Do you, like, if you're having bladder problems, do you want to continue peeing yourself in public, or do something that makes you feel like that helps? What is the worst that can happen?
Not only that, but how many hundreds of thousands of people have had MS that they've treated before us?
Yeah, exactly.
I know that maybe people are thinking, oh, well, does anybody ask about sex, or does anybody ask about this, or does anybody ask about loss of feeling here, or constipation there, or a UTI, or blah, blah. Yes, if you've thought it, then somebody else somewhere has thought it and probably has asked it. And once you ask that first question, it's kind of like the floodgates. Every question after that becomes easier and easier and easier, because you realize, there's so many things that's been thrown at you. You gotta leave that to the side and just get all the help you can, and all the catharsis of talking about it as well, because something is bigger when it's not talked about.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing advice. Thank you all. I will let you all go, give you a few minutes back, but yeah, just a massive thank you to all three panelists. That was a really, really deep and interesting and very difficult chat, I'm sure, for you all. So yeah, I really, really appreciate you being so honest and open, and I'm sure everyone watching will agree with me. So
I felt like it was a very safe space to be that open and vulnerable, Amy. So thank you.
No one was gonna take the mick out of you, was there, or say that?
Of
Yeah.
course not. Never.
No.
No, thank you all so, so much.
Have a good evening, all.
Yeah, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
All right then.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.